What could have been a success month after 2 years of 737 MAX grounding has turned out to be a disastrous month, with airworthiness directives being thrown at Boeing regarding the 737 next generation and the MAX, the 787, the 777-200, an issue with the 747-400, and of course we still have the 777X, which has issues, and the list goes on. And you could ask, what's next? Like, subscribe, and share. As you will see in this video, there have been multiple cases of airworthiness directives pointing at Boeing aircraft, incidents happening, reaching the news, all in this month of February of the year 2021. And you may ask yourself, why is this happening? Why is Boeing getting so badly hurt by so much negative news? And of course, not all incidents are the fault of Boeing. So after 2 years of grounding of the 737 MAX, the FAA has finally certified it, has approved all the changes in different areas, and they're starting to fly. And even in Europe, the 737 MAX has been approved again. And they started delivering again. So Boeing finally started to make some money. So everything seemed to be back on track. Boeing heading towards a year of maybe not per se profits, but at least much less losses. But then things started to happen. So before we start talking about what has been mainly in the news, which is the 777-200, we start with the 737, next generation and MAX. During inspections, cracks have been found around the doors, more specifically the lungs. This could result in further cracks or even complete failure of those lungs, which could lead to decompression, which of course is something you don't want to happen in midair. People will be sucked out, maybe even part of the frame could be ripped away, like what happened already before. So a great number of 737s from both the next generation and the MAX version will have to be inspected, parts have to be replaced. This affects 1,075 aircraft of the 737 next generation and MAX in the US alone. Operators have to conduct these inspections before reaching 10,000 flight hours or within 5,000 flight cycles after January 24th of 2020. Another bad news regarding the 737 is that Southwest Airlines is seriously considering looking at the Airbus A220-300 to replace many of their aging 737s. We would be talking about an order of 300 aircraft. This would be a major blow to Boeing, as Southwest Airlines has been having an all Boeing fleet for the past decades. I recorded a whole video on this. You can click the little box in the top right of the image or the link in the description. Next we have what was mainly in the news, the 777-200. United Flight 328, which departed from Denver, Colorado on its way to Honolulu, Hawaii, suffered on the 20th of February 2021 an engine failure. It was the number 2 engine, which is on the right, and was officially called a contained engine failure. You may be astonished, just like I was at first. Contained engine failure? But the debris was spread over an area of more than 1 mile, 1.5 kilometers. We have seen how the engine looked like it was completely pulled apart. We have seen big, huge pieces of debris, one of which has landed straight on the doorstep of somebody's home. Yet contained? Well, officially yes. In practice, hell no. And I will get to that in a moment. Just for you to know, I will be linking in the description files, sites, videos with very in-depth technical explanations. This is for those who want to go really deep into the technical aspect of this. I'm just informing and trying to paint for you the bigger picture. So from what we can see on the pictures and also what's in the preliminary reports is that one of the main fan blades broke, which is most likely due to metal fatigue, and it cut straight through the engine intake ring. That is that big disc on the front of the engine. That's also what dropped on the doorstep of somebody's home. This resulted in simple aerodynamics. So at high speed, the wind, or it feels like wind, but basically it's the air, but because the airplane is moving so fast, you get a wind pushing on the front of the engine. And if that ring, which is there for aerodynamic reasons, to let the air go either inside and the rest parallel to the engine, if that is missing, then the wind will push straight on whatever it's going to find, which is the engine coiling. So the outside of the engine, the beautiful round plates, but it will blow under it and then rip it off. And that's very normal that happens. And then those pieces damaged slightly the wing, damaged the belly of the aircraft, which seems not to be serious damage. The part that has been damaged is just an aerodynamic part, just there to make the airflow move smoothly around the part where the wing is connected to the aircraft body. And that is why when you look at the pictures, you see an engine that looked like it completely exploded, but it did not. Yes, there is a lot of damage, but it is technically a contained engine failure because the inside of the engine stayed on the inside, except for that one piece of blade that cut the engine coil. That's 99% sure because you can see that cut. So now there is an Emergency Airworthiness Directive to inspect all the 777 aircraft with this specific engine type, which is the Pratt & Whitney 4000 series -112, which is 112-inch blade. Why, you may ask? Just one accident? Well, one accident could be enough, but this is not the first accident. It's the third with the 777. And if you count in the 747-400, then it's not the third, it's the fourth. Or maybe even fifth or sixth. I do not have the data on the 747s that have had the same engine failure. So the previous incidents were on December 2020, the Japan Airlines flight 904. On February 13th of 2018, United flight 1175, also en route to Honolulu, Hawaii, this time from San Francisco. And then the 747-400 that I mentioned, but I will go a little bit more in detail on that later, was on February 20th of the year 2020. So the same week. The directive states that all the engines will be shipped back to Pratt & Whitney for inspections, more specifically for the inspections of the blades of the main engine fan, as there is a high suspicion of metal fatigue. I'm linking details in the description. You can read them at your convenience. One of the questions that arose was, why was there not a fuel dump? Could that 777 land safely, fully loaded as it was? Well, you all remember that the fuel dump happened last year with another aircraft that had engine issues, and we know what happened. It was above a residential area and people got skin injuries. And in this case, the checklists forbid this. If you have engine fire, you're not allowed to have a fuel dump. Simple. You don't want to have fuel vapors close to a fire for obvious reasons. Also, the fuel dump / the maximum landing weight is something of the past, something of older aircraft. Aircraft as recent as the 777 are able to have an extreme heavy landing, or officially is called an overweight landing, and therefore they'll have afterwards an overweight landing inspection. They will be looking at the flight data to assess how deep the inspection has to go, because depending on the speed and the weight, the damage could affect multiple parts and could be found much deeper, so the inspectors have to know where to look. But these modern aircraft are built to sustain a landing with a maximum takeoff weight, which means you take off, you have an engine failure during takeoff, you turn around and you land. Barely burn any fuel, so you're still fully loaded. That is technically possible and safe. I linked in the description to a video from the Blancolario channel where 777 First Officer Juan Brown explained this more in detail. Then, as I mentioned, the 747-400 BCF, a Logan-tailed Aviation cargo aircraft that took off from Maastricht Airport in the Netherlands on February 20th of this year, also having PW4000 series engines, just a different type, had a similar contained engine failure. Here also a lot of debris ended up on the ground, and unfortunately in this case injuring 2 bystanders. It is unclear at this point how many 747s with this specific engine type have had similar engine failure, but we can assume that because it's the same family of engines, that they have the same blade structure, the same material, so they may also have metal fatigue, and we will know very soon if there have been more cases and if also those engines will need to be immediately inspected. But this engine failure was recent and it looks like there haven't been so many yet. We could assume that because it's the same engine family, that they will also issue an Airworthiness Directive. Then, our big friend, the 787, again in the news, again with safety issues. This time, over 200 787s will be ordered to have regular inspections. This is a result of reports of multiple incidents where the front and the aft cargo area bay may have disengaged or torn decompression panels. If damage is found, these panels will need to be replaced or reinstalled. These panels prevent fire from dispersing if there is fire in one of the cargo bays. If these panels are incorrectly placed or they're torn, the fire could disperse easily, and the halo used to extinguish the fire would not be sufficient to kill the fire. And this would mean that the whole cargo bay could get on fire, and thus the whole airplane could come down. So this is a very serious safety issue, and not the first. And there's another case where a Boeing was involved in a dangerous situation, which was a Boeing 757-200 BCF from DHL, which had on February 13th of this year the main cargo bay door opening after takeoff. You may wonder how dangerous it is. Well, especially with a BCF, there is reinforcement when such a door is placed, when the hole is being cut, but the aircraft is not made to have the door open with either a lot of wind when being parked on the ground, definitely not in flight, because that would mean an extremely strong wind pushing on it and it could rip off the door, but with it part of the fuselage, which could literally break the aircraft in half. The investigation is still ongoing, and this is most probably not the fault of Boeing, but it's again Boeing being negatively in the news this month. And last but not least, I wanted to mention something. Duct tape! And you see the picture and people make these jokes, but actually a lot of people really believe that they're using duct tape to fix airplanes, and that's why they're coming down. Well, it's not duct tape, it's speed tape. It's much more expensive, it's very special tape, and is used in very specific cases. We'll link in the description under speed tape a video from Mentor Aviation where the captain explains in great detail what it's used for, when it's used, and what the characteristics are. This concludes the video of today. You may say I've been ranting on about Boeing, but let's be honest, there has been happening way too much for the last few decades, and the fact is that the truth always comes to the surface. It may take a few decades, like with Boeing, they got away with all their misleading tactics, but it's not possible to hide anymore. And don't worry, Airbus also got a big hit. They got an enormous fine to pay after they bribed some generals to sell their A330 tanker. The fine was so high that they lost their whole profit and probably even more on that deal. So it's not just Boeing, and I mentioned this in a previous video already. But corruption and mismanagement in aviation often leads to injury and sometimes horrible fatalities. Each death is one too much. Hundreds of deaths is unacceptable. And yet, even after having had hundreds of deaths on his conscience, Boeing is still cutting corners. Boeing is still doing one thing and one thing only: saving money where possible, still lying, still hiding facts. The whole move away from Seattle to that other facility where facts have shown that the 787s delivered from there, almost all of them had technical issues. Almost all of them were refused by the airlines and had first to be repaired. Errors had to be rectified before they were accepted by the airlines. And yet, the whole production of the 787 is being moved there because there are no unions, so they can save a lot of money on the labor costs. But the quality of the products coming out of that factory is much lower, is beneath the legal standards. Yet they're still moving there because they're just focusing on saving money, on making more profit for the shareholders. I hope that the next video will be more cheerful, will be about some positive things, maybe a deal going through like Southwest Airlines ordering the 300 aircraft either from Boeing or from Airbus. We will see. I made a video already on this. This is in the pipeline. And I wish you a wonderful day. If you disliked the video, you do this. If you liked it, thumbs up, share and subscribe. Also, check out my Patreon page. There you can support me and get access to exclusive content. Get more. Check it out in the link below.